Yo, what up players? My name is Esther, and today I'm going to be showing you how I do my VOD review process. The reason why VOD reviews are so important is because it allows you to play your best in-game and focus on your actual play, and then outside of the game you can really pick it apart and figure out where you're doing good, where you're doing bad, and how you can improve. To better optimize improving, I highly recommend you adopt this process and tweak it to a way that suits you. So for my VOD review process, before you even get into game or before you even go to do a VOD review, you first have to ask yourself, what exactly are you looking for? What are you trying to improve upon? Before my game, I go ahead and pick a goal. And now this goal can last a couple of days, it can last a couple of weeks, depending on what you're working on and how far along you're trying to progress. I highly recommend mastering whatever you set out to do. That way you can learn one thing and master it before moving on to the next, so you won't be taking on too many things at once. So I wanted to set the goal of practicing upfront engaging and knowing what fights are favorable. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I've noticed that I've been struggling with knowing my own limits and I often miss opportunities. So after you set a goal, you want to make a plan of how you're actually going to pursue it, because I can just want to get better at CSing, but unless I actually think about how I'm going to do that, then once I get into the game, I'm not really going to have anything to go off of. So for me, I want to make accurate reads of my matchup, the strengths and the weaknesses, and also the summoners, the items, and the levels as the game progresses. I want to be jungle tracking. That way I know where the jungler is going to be at all times, so I know if I can fight, where the support and the mids are, and what they have up. You know, if it's a TF mid, I don't want to be going in with the TF ult coming up. You want to be doing this for your allies and your enemies. That way you can leverage the strengths and avoid the weaknesses. Fighting in favorable wave states, this is just game knowledge, knowing when is a good fight and when's not a good fight, if I have space to run them down, etc. And then lastly, how can I measure my success? What I like to do for this specific process is ask myself, what was I looking for before I went in? Because I'm focusing on my fights. Did I check for the jungler? Did I check for the mid? Did I look at my wave state? Did I check to see if I have flash? And I basically have this goal with all these conditions. These are the preconditions that you're going to want to be setting for yourself before you're making a play. So if you want to be CSing better, then you want to set preconditions of how you're going to do so. For instance, making sure you're not just aimlessly shoving the wave and that you're prepping your own minions. And so during your game and during your VOD review, you can ask yourself, was I meeting these preconditions that I set for myself? Essentially the guidelines that are going to help you to do what you need to do. These are my guidelines. Next is setting the intention of focusing and improving upon these things. Don't get sidetracked. When you get into your game, don't zone in on all the other aspects of the game. You're here to improve, so your goal is no longer just simply to gain LP. While trying to win is great and doing that is great, if you want to improve, you're going to have to take your focus away from all the other aspects of the game for a second and focus really on the thing that you want to improve. And then over the course of a week or so, now you don't even have to think about this. Now that thing that you practiced is a part of you and it's a habit. And so now you can go back to focusing on the other aspects of the game, or you can pick up another fundamental that you want to practice and master. So when I'm going into my games, I'm setting the intention of taking note before my fights and trying to meet all these conditions so that I can get better at this, and I establish good habits that are going to enable me to practice upfront engaging and knowing when fights are favorable. Next thing is I recommend playing 3 games max. I think a 3 block is the perfect amount of time. It keeps your intensity high, and if you play any more than 3 games, you are simply not going to be playing with the same intensity that you were before. Even if you take like an hour break, you know, I think that 3 games is just plenty of game time, and there's plenty of review that you can be doing in between that. You don't have to play only 3 games a day, but at least play in blocks of 3 and VOD review after each game. When you're reviewing after each game, make sure you're walking through the beginning of the game and any parts that are pertaining to the goals that you have. So for me, I'm looking at all the early game fights and then maybe some that are later on, and I'm checking my conditions and where I made mistakes and how I could have done better, the things that I was missing out on, not paying attention to. So depending on what your goal is, don't focus your VOD review on some late game team fights that you guys throw. Focus on the part of the VOD review that's going to actually relate to the goal that you set and the conditions that you're trying to meet. And this is a big one. Don't focus on what your team or your enemies did right or wrong, and just focus on yourself, because time and time again, people will look at a game and be like, oh, we lost this game because blah, blah, blah inted, and then because blah, blah, blah got fed and whatever. That doesn't matter, because we're not trying to figure out why we won or lost. We're trying to figure out how we can get better and improve upon this goal that we have. So while you're playing the game and while you're VOD reviewing the game, remind yourself that your goal is not to simply win. You're trying to improve upon these key areas that are going to help you to replicate wins more often. And what this really is developing behavior and habits that are going to enable you to win more games. If you naturally try to develop a process that enables you to get better, improve upon mistakes, and have good habits, then the wins and the LP is going to be a side effect of your process. So instead of focusing on just trying to get LP, focus on actually trying to improve and to generate LP as a result of your improvements. As a general sense for your VOD review, I always recommend taking notes on what you did right and wrong, even if it's not directly pertaining to your goal, because you can find some little micro things that you're messing up on frequently, and it can just be good at the review process overall. Next, I recommend seeing if you're meeting the preconditions that you set. I'll show you guys in my notes exactly what I mean. Right down here, I have some general notes, but then I have my goals tab here. And these goals directly pertain to what I set up here. Accurate reads of the matchup, jungle tracking, where are the supported mids, fighting with favorable wave states. So every time I watch the play, I take my general notes and then I go here. I have the jungle tracking, I have the conditions in the lane, and I have the wave state. Doing this allows me to make sure I'm taking the preconditions and actually applying them to the VOD that I'm taking, and I'm doing that for each and every instance that it applies. So I have all these fights here that we're going to be going over today. Getting straight into this game, the first thing that I always do and that I highly recommend doing is analyzing a matchup. You can do this in loading screen, you can start doing it in champ select, but just get a general idea of how the game's going to play out so that you know what you need to do. I'm looking at Graves and I'm looking at Master Yi. Master Yi is likely going to full clear, Graves can likely 3 camp into a gank, but he can also full clear. I know that Lucian Nami is going to be very strong and we're going to be able to punish the Karthus and the Sona, and I also know that they're very weak early game, but they like to scale. So we want to be making good pressure in the early game to try to get a lead, and we don't really want to be letting them scale for free. In regards to the mid, I know that Quinn can roam, Lyssandra's decent at roaming, and now I have a general sense of how the game's going to go and I know what to look for. I'm looking for Graves when he ganks, and I'm looking for openings early game because I know that they're weak. I've already gone through this game and bookmarked all the fights, so we're going to watch the fight through, and then I'm going to go back and we'll rewatch it, and I'll break down some things, show you what I'm looking for, and explain how I'm using this process. So I'm about to hit level 2. Go ahead and go in. Hits a nice bubble. Flashes away. I flash to respond. Die to Karthus, and Graves comes in and ends up cleaning up the Nami. So I had a good walk up on the engage, I popped my potion late, I misclicked and walked forward, and I didn't anticipate Graves. We can see here, I'm a little bit late walking up, but it was good. Nami hits the bubble. Right here, I walk forward instead of auto-attacking, and then I still haven't popped any potions despite being below half health. And then also, because Graves started on his blue buff, I thought that you would just blue buff Gromp and then go straight to red, but it seems as though he just did the blue Gromp and came to level 2 gank bot. One last thing, I did assume that Nami started E, so I thought I was going to burst him a lot more. The bubble worked out, but I would have started WE for her. So what I do after I've watched the clip and I've kind of picked it apart a bit, I take some notes on my micro, what I could have done better in regards to just my simple play, and then I asked myself about my goals. So I knew Graves was on his blue buff because they leashed, so I thought I had a window because I thought they was going to path those red. Didn't know he'd come. I knew I win because I had the level 2 advantage. They can't kill us. And then I had a decent wave state to run them down and win the fight. So all of my conditions were pretty much met, despite having forgot about the Graves possibly pathing bot, which is an irregular path. So it's really nothing that I can do there, besides maybe just drop a preemptive ward. So this next fight, I'm coming back into lane after having backed. I have a couple of items, and Karthus tries to engage on me. I'm just kind of auto-attacking him down. I'm not really dashing yet because I'm saving that to dodge, and I'm waiting for my Nami. And then we end up just picking up a free kill on Karthus despite him having a huge wave. The notes that I took for this fight, I could have tethered slightly better. I could have been more on the outside with my auto attack range and avoided a couple more of his Qs. And I could have also used the bush. If you see right here, I could have walked into the bush. I had good spacing with the minion wave, and I popped my potion as soon as we started fighting, so that was good. As you can see, as soon as he goes and pops his Q on me, I instantly pop a potion, which is great. And I'm staying far enough back to where these caster minions aren't really hitting me until the very end, so I'm not walking into him and walking into his wave. So I did have good positioning, I did have a good read on the wave. Now, talking about my goals that I had set. I saw the Sona back at 256. If we go back, if you look at the bottom right corner, we do see that Sona is backing, so I know that I have a window. I know I can 1v1 Karthus because I'm an ADC with press the attack and I have an item advantage on him. And now the wave state's not favorable for the 1v1, but it does give me a lot of space to kill him, and I know as long as I don't tank the minions, I won't just int. So I was willing to take that risk, and then Nami ends up coming in too, which helps me clean it up. And then lastly, we see Graves mid in this whole fight, so we know he can't be here. Plus, he was just bot, so there's no way he paths there. So overall, good utilization of the key points that I wanted to make. So in this fight, I'm just trying to bait them in because I see that my Yi and my Nami are coming bot. So I'm pacing. I see they're getting close, so I just go up and I'm trying to bait. I'm not trying to take too much damage here, but I'm trying to drag them as far as I possibly can, so that way I can secure a kill on them. Yi goes in on the Karthus, which I don't like, and then he switches his focus to the Sona. I have to heal him. Nami had whiffed her bubble, and there's a fat wave, so we just stopped chasing right there. I could have done the bait about 5 seconds later. That way, as they're walking into me, my allies are walking into the lane. So if you see here, I get them at the peak while they're still kind of in this brush. If I would have done this a second later, maybe they're already on top of them and they overextend just a bit more. I could have dodged some more Qs, but again, that's micro. That's just something to take note of. I could have paced much more further up, and I also could have pinged a target, the Sona. Because if you look here, after I get hit by this last Q, I go forward for a second, get hit again, and then I pace back. So if I'm actually just beelining it straight towards them, I might actually get there and do a little bit more damage a little bit faster, and it might just be an easier collapse on the kill. And the problem here was that Yi didn't really focus one target, which is kind of troll. So I think that he should have just gone for the Sona or committed to the Karthus. But I could have prevented that by just simply communicating. And now lastly, I want to go back onto my goals. Again, I'm talking about this micro stuff because this is stuff that I'm noticing that I can just be aware of and kind of have a tell as to why the fight went the way that it did, and it can just clean up my micro. But the main goal, like I said, is to do my little checklist, my preconditions. I knew Graves had died mid. You can see him die at 508. I knew that they couldn't straight up kill me because I was able to dash out. I had heal up, I believe. And then I had a favorable wave state for a gank. I was aware of the fact that there were a lot of minions and I couldn't just bluntly fight them. But with the wave pushing into me, I could bait them in, and then I could have a lot of space to run them down. Now in this fight, Nami and I are sitting in the bush. I go in a little bit early, and Karthus actually sidesteps my ability. And I get exhausted here, so I end up flashing defensively because I wasn't going to deal out a whole lot of damage. But with Karthus being as low as he was, probably could have just killed him. She ends up being greedy, and I end up trying to kill her. And then I'm greedy, and I actually get caught here by the Graves, and I just end up dying. So, breaking this one down. I know that Karthus has a level advantage. I'm level 5, he's level 6, so that's not great. I could have farmed and waited, but I wanted to go for that cheese opportunity. And then also they had Guardian up. I could have just gone and used that bush cheese to pop the Guardian. Also, just taking short exchanges. Karthus really likes that all-in type of fight because he doesn't mind dying to try to kill you. So if I would have just bursted him down really quick and then backed out for free, I could have gone in and finished him pretty easily. But that's just a bad read on the matchup. The flash was okay because I was exhausted here, but I think if I, instead of flashing here, I maybe just flash over here, that it's a little better because now I'm just here. I could walk into the bush and then I can just finish Karthus off. Now I have like no space, and Nami actually has to really overextend and take extra damage. So kind of a misplay on my part, but it's just how greedy do you want to be and how much do you want to risk, and I just took the safe way because I was exhausted. In regards to my goals, Graves appeared on the minimap at 8:29 in the bot side river, and I did not notice that. He shows in mid right here, and then he shows exiting through the bot side river here. So after I get this kill, I have to assume that he's either going to run right back into mid or he's going to be pacing down bot. And it's not really worth the risk because there's really nothing else for me to get. I can try to greed for Sona, or I can just go ahead and try to crash these waves. Not only do I fail to read that the Graves is exiting through the mid into the bot side river, but I also don't have any wards, and so that's an even more of a reason for me to just back up and not do anything. Also, I assumed that I could kill this Sona. I had a bad read on what Sona was capable of, and I had a bad read on where their jungler was. So Sona actually had flash and is able to flash my ultimate, and then Graves happens to show up, and those are two of the principles that I had set for myself that I actually didn't pay enough attention to, and that's what got me killed in this play. One of the big points that I want to make is I really hope you guys are seeing that I am picking apart why and how these plays are going good or bad. That way I'm not just assuming like something worked and then something else didn't work. It's like a lot of people might look at this play and just think like, oh, Graves ganked you so you died. No, like there's all these steps that I could have taken intermittently to have made it a better play, and then also been aware of the Graves being there in the first place. All right, so in this fight, I just walk up onto Karthus. I'm just stronger than him. He has a level advantage, but I'm really not worried about it. Didn't have a great read on the Sona, so she ends up showing up. And I also forgot to use Gale Force and use it super late. It probably could have been a double kill if I used it properly. For my notes for this one, I have a decent wave state. Engaging on Karthus is not risky because I'm full item, I'm very bursty, I can blow up a mage, no problem. Now, I did dash too far forward, I was a bit greedy, and I failed to use my Gale Force. All of this was so vital here that it would have been a free kill had I done it a little bit better. Walking up on Karthus here, we can see I dash really far forward, just past Karthus. I don't need to do that, like I can kill him without doing so, and I actually exposed myself to Sona when I didn't have to. And if you look right here, right about here is where I should have Gale Forced. Like, I think he's basically dead, but instead he gets the heal, he gets the shield, he gets the Guardian, and then I kill him. If I had just done everything a little bit sooner, then I would have been able to just burst him right up and it would have just been a free kill. Also, if the Sona was level 6, then it would have been much harder. That's something that I wasn't aware of. If Sona walks in right now with level 6 and just ults me, I am dead. There's nothing that I can do. Luckily, she was level 5, so that's just something I want to be more aware of going into the future. Be more aware of the state of the game, who is where, and what level are they, what do they have. In regards to the conditions that I've set, I know that Graves is dead. We can see him dead on the timer down here. And decent wave state to fight in, and I am stronger. Unfortunately, I didn't have the read on the Sona, but most of my other conditions were met. I knew where the jungler and the mid were, I had a decent wave state, and I knew that I was stronger and capable of actually killing them. So this is the last fight of the game. I dash in for a quick engage with my ultimate. Not terrible, but just a little bit sloppy. You know, I didn't have to get this low health. I didn't cancel the ult fast enough. I didn't pop the potions fast enough, and I could have dodged more Qs. We'll go over that first. Right here, I know that I want to clear these minions and then ult, because that's a great way to use my ult, and if he's inside the minions, it's basically useless. And so I kill this minion and I dash up here. Right here, I need to cancel my ultimate. I'm not going to be able to kill through all these melee minions to be able to get any more damage on him, and I need to cancel it because then I have a double shot. So I cancel late, and so my auto attacks come in late, and I actually take up a lot more damage than I needed to, and then I also just tanked a lot more Qs than I had to. And one more thing is I didn't really realize that I had queued and then went in. I queue right here when I didn't have to, and what that does is now it puts me on a 6-second timer before I can get another Q in, and I really want to open up with that damage instead of just finish off with it, because it's kind of scary. The Q comes in really clutch, and if I don't have the Q come up, I might die. Luckily it works out. And then I also just now start popping potions, and I want to be popping potions as soon as I take a tick of damage. And the last thing is I don't necessarily need to all in him. As you can see, like, I have burst damage. Like, he doesn't do that much to me. I could have just backed out right here and then just been fine. That was a great ultimate. I could just chill, wait for my E and my Q to come back up, and I could actually zone him off the wave. I don't need to commit to this fight, although I know I can. I did see Graves down here on the map at about 1050. And then a few seconds later is when I go ahead and engage on the Karthus. So I do have a decent window. He could be pathing down towards me, but by and large, I should be safe if I can burst him down fast enough and it's not a prolonged fight. Right around the time that I did see the Graves, I also saw that Sona was not respawned yet. So again, it kind of fits that window that I have to kill Karthus. In regards to the wave state and just myself and Karthus against each other, I know that if there isn't a wave so I can ult, I will kill him very easily, and then if he oversteps at all whatsoever, I'll be able to kill him because of my lane state. But again, those are micro things. That's not actually what I'm here to focus on. It's just things that I'm acknowledging. What I'm focusing on is these key fundamentals that I've set for myself in regards to where the jungler is, the mid is, the support is, reading the wave state, and then reading if I can kill them or if they can kill me. If I'm sitting here studying every time I messed up, and every time I didn't do what I set out to do, then I'm acknowledging it and I am bringing more attention to it so that I'm just developing this good habit. And why it's so important to do this in a VOD review is because if you're just playing your games and you died a bunch in lane and you lost the game, like, you probably know, like, oh, I probably died because I overextended and I probably didn't look for the jungler or whatever. But when you're watching it in the VOD and you can see yourself panning your screen and engaging and doing everything, it really puts you back in your own shoes and you can realize what you were thinking about and what you weren't thinking about. And if you make yourself aware of that, that is when you can interject with good habits and good awareness, and you can be more aware of the bad habits and the bad awareness that's going on while you're playing the game. So at this point, I stopped VOD reviewing, and again, I do these after every single game, and I do it more briefly. I've definitely taken a little bit more time explaining things and going over things because this is a video and I'm trying to teach you guys, but I usually keep my VODs down to like 3 to 4 minutes max. I usually watch like the first 8 to 10 minutes, depending on what I'm looking for, and I'm not spending a whole lot of time looking at it because I'm just trying to get myself a briefing, understand where I'm doing good and where I'm doing bad, take some brief notes, and I look over those notes and go into the next game. The last thing that I want to touch on is customizing your process. This process works for me, and it's something that I've been doing because I like it. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to do it this way. None of this is exactly how you need to improve or how you need to do this process, but this is exactly what works for me, and I'm sharing it with you guys in hopes that this can help you. And I highly, highly recommend and encourage you to develop your own process and do something that works for you. I would also ask yourself, what are your goals for the game in general? Do you just want to hit diamond? Do you want to hit platinum, gold, whatever it is? And if you don't have a goal for this game, I highly recommend you set one, because that's going to help you to get better if that's something that you're interested in. And if you do have a goal for the game, you need to be asking yourself, what can you do to help you reach this goal? And usually goals are oriented around playing better and being more aware and being smarter in game. And so a lot of this comes from practice, but also from the VOD review. There's too much going on in your head for you to be thinking about how you're going to get better and how that play from 5 minutes ago didn't benefit you and how you should have done better. Save it for the VOD. Stay in the moment, stay high intensity, and just focus on playing your best. And then after the game, that's when you can take a step back and look at what you did right and wrong. You can analyze the game, and it'll just keep it a lot cleaner. You'll be able to play better and focus more in game, and you'll be able to get more out of thinking about the game outside of it. If you are interested in a VOD review session or a VOD review video just like this one, then head over to my Patreon, where you can get one for only $5 a month, and I can do it for you every month you subscribe. If you are interested in getting better and growing, I highly recommend you join my Discord, where you can find myself and others who are willing to help you, teach you, and provide a cool community for people to play and grow together. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next video.